we're back at the WACA after a somewhat shock result yesterday. England losing to South Africa in the final over with 2 balls to spare. A little bit unexpected, that result, was it, Syd?
Maybe a little bit, but I think we were hoping that South Africa would give England the game, and they certainly did. And South Africa was always going to be the big challenge game of the group stages for England, and South Africa, played to their best. England didn't quite play to their best, and that's what happens.
England have got a little bit of a history of losing their first match in tournaments and in series, haven't they? So memorably in the 2017 World Cup in England, they lost their first group game to India, and then went on and won all the others. But is that a little bit worrying that England are consistently losing that first match?
Well, if we're going to take 2017 as a template, then it's not that worrying because they went on to win the tournament, of course. But it's, I guess, in a little bit of a sense, we know it is something the players talk about, because when they win the first match, they're always like, well, at least we didn't lose the first match like we usually do. So it is something that's a little bit there in their heads. But at the end of the day, I don't think that's why they lost. I don't think they've got a psychological block on first matches. And they've been here for a while. They've played the tri-series, so it's not like they've just stepped off the plane and they've all got jet lag. They've all been here for several weeks. I think it's just one of those things. South Africa played really well and England didn't play at their best. That's what happens.
I guess it's surprising in the sense that, about 20 months ago in Taunton in June 2018, England very famously made 250 against South Africa in what was a record at the time, and absolutely annihilated them in that game. And then obviously they beat them very easily last time in the 2018 Women's World 2020 as well. They walked all over them in that match. So it's perhaps unexpected from that perspective.
Yeah, perhaps. I mean, South Africa definitely don't always play to their potential. They're definitely a team where their potential's up there and where they usually play is down there. Whereas with England, we more see their potentials there and they usually play kind of around there.
But what is it that South Africa have done in the last year and a bit to transform things for themselves so dramatically?
Well, apart from that, we've seen that Mignon du Preez has become a very different player over the past couple of years. We've seen that in the Super League as well. I think that didn't quite start off at Loughborough Lightning. I think that started off in her final season at Southern Vipers. She started scoring more heavily, scoring more quickly. We saw a great innings she played supporting Tammy Beaumont at Guildford 2 years ago for the Vipers. But we've seen the complete transformation now to a player that can hit those sixes when it really counts.
Okay, I guess another thing that was mentioned in the press conference last night was the importance for Marizanne Kapp having that consistency of knowing that she's going to bat at number 3 in T20s. That was something that was spoken about, wasn't it?
Yeah, Minx in the press conference was asked about Kapp, and she said that it's very important for her, for Kapp psychologically to have that role where she knows that she's coming in at 3. Earlier in her career, they weren't quite sure. They treated her initially just as a bowler who could bat a bit, and she was moved around the order a lot. But apparently, she's much more relaxed, always coming in at 3 and knowing that that's exactly where she's going to have her role in the team. And that's kind of interesting, Raf, because it kind of contrasts with the way that England are playing at the moment, doesn't it?
Well, you said it. Well, I mean, yeah. It's something that has been heavily debated. England's new strategy under Lisa Kiteley and Heather Knight seems to be that England are going to have a very much a flexible order. So last night, for example, we saw that Catherine Brunt came in a little bit up the order, and Tammy Beaumont ended up not coming in until number 7. Therefore, she didn't get to the crease until the 19th or 20th over. Very little time for her to make an impact. And given that, we mentioned that great performance of England against South Africa in June 2018 at Taunton, half of that was Tammy Beaumont. She hit 116. It was a brilliant effort, and she was opening then. She's now been relegated to a place in the order where I feel like we're really very rarely ever going to see her, and that just feels like such a waste.
Yeah, I do understand that. I mean, we talked about this prior to the tournament about whether this was a good idea, and there's certainly, I can see where England are coming from in that they want to ensure that they can hit some big runs in the last couple of overs, so they want to save her up for that. But in terms of yesterday, it didn't really work. But fundamentally, I think that the problems were yesterday were those middle overs, really. And you can't really blame Tammy for that, certainly, or necessarily her batting position. Although if she'd come in earlier, maybe she would have been the one to put a bit more impetus into the innings a little bit earlier.
Well, I think the problem yesterday was really that England kind of doubly screwed themselves over to some extent. So they've got this very long batting order. They're meant to be kind of playing batsmen from 1 to 8, and that is meant to allow you some flexibility if you lose early wickets, to then for those kind of late middle order to be able to really prop you up and get you out of a hole. But what happened yesterday was England not only lost wickets, but they did so in a way that where the middle order, there wasn't any impetus to their batting effort. They weren't hitting boundaries. I think they didn't hit a single boundary or they hit maybe one boundary between the 8th and 15th overs or something. They they dramatically slowed things down. And then that meant that even though Tammy Beaumont and Lauren Winfield did both get to the crease, they got to the crease at a point at which it was too late then for England to really recover and get to anything approaching, a competitive total, I think. So if you're going to have Tammy Beaumont and Lauren Winfield at 6, 7 and 8, then you've really got to allow them time to fulfil that role.
Yeah, you've got to be prepared to lose your wicket to gain runs, kind of thing. You've got to be prepared for Heather Knight in yesterday's innings to just go a little bit harder and take a few more risks. At which point, if she gets out, well, those people come in earlier and then they get the chance to give that impetus.
I mean, Richard Clark commented on your piece from yesterday, basically saying that he feels like this is Lisa Kiteley's way of trying to make her mark on the team, kind of come in as the new coach and say, right, well, we're changing things up and Tammy Beaumont's going down the order and we're going to have 8 batsmen, which is something that didn't happen under Mark Robinson. But actually, if you're doing that just for the sake of it, just to be clever, then that's a bit pointless.
Yeah, I mean, the key point there, I think, is that having 8 batsmen is great until you wind up short of a bowler, and this is, I think, one of the key questions from yesterday that perhaps hasn't been raised. Is if England had Freya Davis to call upon to bowl late on in the innings, to bowl some of those death overs. Freya Davis had bowled those 2 overs that Anya Shrubsole sent down her second 2 overs that both went for 11. They might have gone for 5 or 6. At which point South Africa, are perhaps pushing it a little bit more. I mean, I don't want to play that up too much because I do think that South Africa just timed their chase, and if there'd been a little bit more to chase, they would have gone a little bit harder. But I think that could definitely, there's an argument there that if Davis had been playing, England would have had more bowling options, and it wouldn't really have made much difference to the batting.
Absolutely, and we've seen that in the Kia Super League, Freya Davies is absolutely capable of bowling those death overs and doing so very effectively. And you'd think that Heather Knight, who's been her captain at Western Storm for 4 seasons, would kind of know that, but there you go. Something else that's been kind of a bit controversial, which we'll just raise quickly, is that man-cad that wasn't. In the last over, Catherine Brunt refused to man-cad Sune Luce at the non-striker's end. We know that Sune Luce has been man-cadded before. I think Hypercourse tweeted that from a few months ago that this has already happened to her. So she has been warned, although not by England. So what did you make of that, Sid?
Well, you know what, call me older than my years, or or just old. But I think England did the right thing. Nat Sivers said in the press conference, we would never do that. If that's the way you're going to win a game of cricket, that's not how I want to win a game of cricket.
Okay, fair enough. I'll be interested to hear any comments from people watching this as to what you made of it, because it certainly generated a few waves over here in the Australian media, shall we say. Okay, can England recover from this? I mean, effectively they've now got to probably win all 3 of their remaining group games, which are against Thailand, Pakistan and then the West Indies next weekend. So are they going to be able to get to the semi-finals now, Sid?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that West Indies game obviously is likely to wind up being quite important. I mean, it's still possible, and certainly mathematically possible, they lose to the West Indies and can still qualify, but they're making things very difficult for themselves and they're very reliant on lots of other results if that happens. But if they beat the West Indies and win the other 2 games, then we're not calling the pathologist yet. We might just need the cardiologist a little while.
I suppose the other point to make would be that England have got to have half an eye now on net run rate, really, particularly against Thailand and Pakistan, perceived to be 2 of the weaker teams in the tournament. They've really got to make sure that if it did come down to that on a technicality, that they've boosted their net run rate enough, which presumably it's not particularly good at the moment after yesterday's quite poor performance with the bat.
Yes.
Okay, well, anyway, we're off to watch Australia's match today, and then we're off to Canberra tomorrow for England's next group match. So see you there.